Was Nigel the consensualist?
Absolutely.
There's another element in your conservatism, which I think I've traced a long way back, certainly reading your memoirs, is patriotism, good old-fashioned patriotism.
Oh, yes.
And I remember you expressed it very vividly once when we were talking about the pride, legitimate pride you hold in being one of the few national servicemen in the Royal Navy to command your own vessel.
You sound lucky.
The motor torpedo boat named
Gay Charger.
How terrific.
Yeah, but gay in those days meant something different from what it means today.
Certainly in the Royal Navy. You left Oxford and went into journalism. Why was that?
Because I was always interested, like you, in public affairs. And I felt that I would enjoy that more than anything else. I also, I suppose, I don't want to sound pompous or priggish, but I've always felt that I would like to do something for the public good. And so, since I can't do anything creatively artistic for the public good, the one thing I could do was maybe contribute to public affairs.
And was the worm of political ambition at work already as well?
No, I didn't particularly want to enter politics. I thought that my contribution at that time in public affairs could be best done by writing and critical writing. And indeed, I also, I think, had the prejudice which is frequent among the young in general and among young journalists in particular, that politicians are a disreputable lot of people. And indeed, I think the only thing which really completely got rid of that feeling for me, although as I've been a journalist and got to know more and more politicians, I realised there were all sorts, and there were some extremely different people. But nevertheless, when I think of him, there was a man of such complete integrity, preventing him from getting to the top. And so then I took a different view of politics and politicians.
Were you for Mrs. Thatcher from the beginning?
I was, really, yes, and this was not just on because of her political views, but her personal qualities. I remember, I didn't know her really very well. I knew her, I came across her slightly, and it impressed me when I was asked, I was that time decided that I would like to go into politics, and therefore I was working for the Conservative Party. And they asked me to write the 1974 manifesto. The draft manifesto already exists, written a long time ago, and the world. And so one of the first things I did was to write to every member of the cabinet and say, I would like you to do, let me have a draft of what you would like to see in your area of policy in the manifesto. And they all sent me things which had clearly been written by their officials. They were absolutely useless. The one person who had written her own clearly was the education policy, which was Margaret was at that time Secretary for Education, and it was clearly written by her. Indeed, there were crossings out and changes in her own hand, and it was quite different from what all the others had sent me. I had never met her then. That made an impression on me.
And she becomes Prime Minister in 79, and you go to the Treasury as Financial Secretary. How would you sum up her style as Prime Minister, as manager of cabinet, for example?
She certainly didn't see herself as just a sort of almost a non-executive chairman. She had this engaging habit of summing up at the beginning and then seeing whether anybody had the guts to challenge her summing up. That was how she approached it. She also, of course, sometimes didn't know what she wanted. She didn't always know what she wanted. And when she didn't know what she wanted, the meetings would go on and on, going round and round. And that was particularly true in cabinet committees. And so I had to suggest, which I did, that I would have in between meetings of the committee. I would have a committee of my own to try and make progress, because otherwise I could see it going on round and round further. But she was very strong. She had very strong views. She liked an argument. And the people who got bullied most, like Geoffrey Howe, they never argued with her. That was the problem. I mean, he would stubbornly persist with his own views, but he would never actually argue. She loved an argument. Obviously, she wanted to win every argument, but she didn't just want, as it was popularly known, a cabinet of yes men. It was helpful to me because although she and I had very different personalities and characters, we were at one on a number of ideas. I came into Parliament late in life, because I was over 40 before I became a member of Parliament, and I'd been writing all the time. So my ideas on the need to break away completely from the old failed consensus, not just negative, I had a clear idea of what we needed to do, and that chimed very well with what she had come to think and believe.
As an old journalist, you were quite a connoisseur of watching the press operation, weren't you, in Guildford Rd, a press secretary with the cutters leading with the Sun?
Yes.
Can you describe how you rumbled that particular operation? Because it needed a journalist's eye to see what was going on.
I was helped by the fact that, I don't know whether she was aware of this, it was maybe because I was living next door, because I was number 11, she was number 10 Downing Street. But she didn't read the newspapers except at the weekend. She relied entirely on Bernard Ingham's press summary. And Bernard Ingham's press summary was delivered not merely to number 10, but to number 11 as well. And so it didn't have to be very clever to know what he was feeling up with. And he would always lead with the Sun. And there was a curious circularity about his press summaries, because he would have been the person who told the Sun what to write in the first place. So all that was happening was that he would then say, Prime Minister, very important, this is what the Sun has to say, and they are most closely in touch with the people of this country, as you know.
So she thought she had a unique access to the mind of the British people.
Absolutely.
Because of this particular operation?
Yes.
Very clever. Not many people rumbled that at the time.
I don't think so.
No. Going back to the Keynesian orthodoxy that you were instrumental with others in puncturing, if I can put it that way, how tough was it to turn around that orthodoxy?
It would have been very tough, but for one thing, and that was that the experiences of the Labour government in the 1970s, before we came into office in 1979, had been so bad that the Treasury officials, for whom I have a very high regard, and I couldn't have done what I did without them, but they were fortunately completely demoralised. They were shell-shocked. They were shattered. Particularly the experience when the British government had to go cap in hand to the IMF.
In 1976?
In 1976, the first industrialised country that had ever done that. And that was a humiliation. So they didn't believe at all in what we said we were going to do. Maybe one or two did, but the majority of the Mandarin did, and the Treasury didn't. But they had nothing else to offer, and they, as I say, were completely demoralised and shell-shocked. So we were able to have our way with much less difficulty than would otherwise have been the case.
Did you expect, with the set of policies that the first Thatcher government brought in, loosely labelled monetarism, which is an inadequate label, but there it is, that's what it was called, would produce quite such high unemployment?
No, we never expected that to happen. But what it demonstrated, of course, was the huge inefficiency in so much of British industry, worst of all in the nationalised sector, but also in other large companies. There was huge overmanning in nationalised industries and in most large corporations. When there was a clear financial discipline applied, and the government was no longer going to be a soft touch, there was a shakeout of the overmanning. So unemployment rose to a very high level, which was very distressing. We didn't want it, but it was a necessary part of the correction. We weren't going to be deterred from pursuing these policies because of the high level of unemployment, which governments in the past, when they tentatively tried, on the few occasions they had what we were doing, they were always so terrified by that they thought that they could